Hello, my name is Tara Karchaturoff, and welcome to Michigan Entrepreneur, where we feature businesses from startup to stellar. Today, I have as my special guest, Tom Borg, founder and president of Tom Borg Consulting. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tara.
Well, I'm really excited to have you as a guest on today. And today we're going to be talking about delegation, a really important concept, no matter for your family, for work, it works all the time, or sometimes it doesn't. But before we jump into delegation and you sharing a lot of important things about that topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the kind of work that you do in your business?
Thank you. Well, I am a business consultant, so I work with a number of businesses and organizations, and I work at the intersection of leadership, communication, and culture. So those three things together, that's what I do for my clients to help build those main areas.
And one of your specialties that you have is going into companies, corporations, large and small, and teaching them about principles of delegation. So why is this topic important, and why is it especially important to you and you working with your clients?
Well, if you think about it, the challenge for most organizations is to tap their most valuable resource. That's their people. So how do we tap people's power, their potential? It's by great communication. That's the key. And I find that's one of the biggest challenges for most businesses and organizations, is that they don't do it as well as they can, and it costs them literally billions of dollars. The studies have been done on all this. So what we're trying to do in there is build that communication, build the culture, and as a result, we're going to then do a better job of servicing the end user, the clients. So that's what it's all about. If we can build our people, we're going to be able to fulfill our mission, and that is to meet the needs and wants of the clients we're trying to serve.
So really, you're saying like delegation can't even work until you remedy the issue around communication.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
So when we talk about delegation, that concept, is that something that people like come to you and say, hey, we have problems with delegation, we need some help? Or is this something that's kind of comes as a result of you going into a company, doing an assessment, and then finding out what some of the issues are in that company? How does it come about, this topic that you work on a lot in different companies?
That's exactly what happens. When I start to work with the client on a project, the first thing we do is we go in, we do internal focus groups. So we check in with the leaders, the managers, the frontline people, find out what's going on, what do they like about working there, what are some things that could be improved, and invariably these things bubble up to the surface. Things like communication, or maybe it's the fact that this leader is not delegating and not doing a very good job of that, or maybe it's the fact that they have issues that are coming out in the end where the clients aren't being satisfied, and we trace that back and we start to see where the breakdowns happen. And ultimately, it could be a bottleneck with, say, one department head who's not delegating what he could or she should be delegating. So there's an area that we identify, then we come up with the different solutions, we customize the solutions so that we're able to teach these individuals how to do a better job, to actually acquire the skills, the mindset first, and the skills, and then be able to follow through and do this on a consistent basis.
So you're actually saying like delegation can be taught to people, right?
Of course. Yes, it can.
Now,
Yes.
what about those people? There's reasons why people don't delegate, and I want to dive into those in more detail, but there are some people who just do not want to let go of things at all. Can we talk a little bit about that before, why people don't want to delegate? I mean, I know there's fear around it, like, oh, my job, if I delegate and somebody else can do it, why do they need me, right?
That could be one of the concerns. Absolutely right. I got a couple of them I've prepared. Or some of the reasons I hear from some of my clients is that one is that they just feel they could do it better. They could do the task better. Why delegate to somebody who's going to mess it up, right? So that's a stumbling block right from the get-go. You can only do so many things before you start becoming a bottleneck. So they have to understand, they have to let go of that. And quite frankly, in some cases, people will do it much better than you can do it. Give them a little time and they'll figure out a better way to do it. They're more resourceful. Maybe they're more technologically oriented. These are things that can really come to the surface very quickly. So yes, one of the reasons is, or the excuses, as I like to say, one of the excuses is that they're just afraid people aren't going to do it as well as they. Another thing could be because they just really enjoy doing it. Like that's part of their job they love to do, and they just don't want to give it up because it makes them feel good. Typically, they get some compliments for that type of ability. It's an interesting story. Tom Monahan of Domino's Pizza fame back in the day, when he wanted to take his company and multiply the number of franchises that he had. Well, he didn't have any at the time. He had two. Him and his brother were running two stores. And what happened was he figured out real quick that he needed to stop making pizzas because he loved to make pizzas. But if he was going to grow this franchise dream that he had, he was going to have to start delegating and have to start teaching other people how they could run a pizza business and be under his franchise arrangement. So that was a wake-up call for him.
I can't believe he was actually making the pizzas.
Oh, sure he was. He was
I
also
did not know
delivering
that.
them. That's when they had the two little stores, one in Ann Arbor, one in Ypsilanti. That's how they did it. Great read, by the way, for our listeners is Pizza Tiger. That's the name of his book that he wrote so many years ago, but it tells the story of how he became successful. But so that's another thing. We have oftentimes people are really good at doing a particular task, and they don't want to give it up because it makes them feel good. So that's another reason why they won't do it. Another concern they have is, okay, well, I'll let this person do it. They might make a mistake, and it could cost us a lot of money. You know, it could be, or we could lose a client because of this, or it could create some issues with one of the other departments because the project didn't get finished the way it was supposed to. So those are some real concerns, but oftentimes people will use them as an excuse not to delegate. So there's just a couple.
You know, I was listening to something the other day with the great Jim Edwards, and he was saying, if you want a $500 an hour business, you can't be doing $5 an hour work.
That's right.
You know, it's about delegating and looking at value, but sometimes people lose sight of that. You know, you know, when you're the CEO, you're hired at a certain level to do certain types of work. And while we might love it, sometimes we can't do that work because we have to, again, do what we're best at, but at, you know, high value, high return. And there's people we have to develop. And if they won't develop, if you won't let go of things, right?
Absolutely. Another excuse I hear too is they feel guilty doing it. They think, oh, I don't want him to do that or her to do that. She'll think I'm just dumping on them, something I don't want to do. Well, no, we have to understand that you don't want to feel guilty about giving other people responsibility to follow through on a particular task that you've delegated to them. So that's another excuse that we have to work through. It's a mindset. I really think when I try to share with all my clients is we have to start with our own mind. It's a mindset. We have to understand what is our purpose as a leader in an organization. What is the purpose of our organization and how are we going to accomplish that? So we have to go back to, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to delegate to other people? And as a result, is that going to get us the results we need and want? And yes, it can.
The funny thing about this is that there are two ends of the spectrum. There are executives or, you know, higher ups that they delegate everything. They don't want to do anything themselves. And that's great because they end up developing a lot of people and they really are a command and control center. And, you know, the true executive, you would say from like old school. But and then there's the other side of, like you said, that is one that doesn't come up as often, but they don't want to dump on people. They feel guilty or weird about asking somebody to do that. I've even been hired by people and saying, oh, I didn't want to ask you to do that. It's like, but you hired me to do these tasks. Why wouldn't you want me to do them? You know, it's just, it's funny, but that's a really good point that you made.
So those are just a few. There's probably a few more in my notes here. Let me take a quick peek here. Oh, here's another one. They don't have the time. They don't have the time to delegate because they thought, hey, by the time I explain this to him or her, I could have done that task myself. I have to remind them, well, if that's the case, well, that may work one time, but what about the 14 or 15 or 16 times you're going to be doing that throughout the week? That adds up. And just as you said, are you running a $500 business? No, you want to maximize your talents as a leader, and that means to delegate some of these other things to people within your organization who hopefully are earning a lot less money than you are or what you're paying yourself. So it just becomes expensive too when you are simply delegating or not delegating. You're doing all the work. You become a pretty expensive paperclip pusher. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And the thing is nowadays we have so many tools we can use to make delegation easier. So when I have to delegate something to somebody, I'll have to often just make a Zoom video, and it's something I can put back in a library. So in case I have to show somebody again how to do it, I already have something recorded and pre-done. And of course, having procedures and things like that already put together in your company really helps, or having that person go make them too while they're doing the job. And yeah, it is an investment, but you can only pass through that intellectual capital of the company if you pass it along. You can't keep it all to yourself. Otherwise, nobody will know anything, right?
That's exactly right. It's a very, very good point. And to be able to document what you are doing in terms of the videos of the instructions, that sort of thing, that's really a smart way to create a system. And that's what a business should be. It should be run on a system. And by doing that, you're just going to be able to be that much more efficient and effective.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the benefits? And there's a lot of benefits to delegating, but let's talk about a couple in detail. So what's one benefit? I guess one of them is like you don't have to do the work yourself, right?
Well, that could be one of them. Absolutely, you wouldn't have to do the work yourself. One of the first ones is if the job gets done. That's that is the main benefit. The job does get done. A second benefit is that with individuals, we have to think about it. People leave companies for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is that they don't feel important. They don't feel like they're being valued. Their potential is not being developed. So that's another good reason to delegate, because you want to grow those people that you've hired, because you don't want to have to replace them with somebody else because they've gone on to greener pastures. Give them that opportunity to develop their skill set. So that's another good reason why we should be delegating. Another reason is people want to fill in on things. And so when you are delegating to the individuals in your organization, they have the opportunity to feel, hey, I'm valued here, and I feel like I'm part of this. I'm part of making this business successful. I'm just not somebody that shows up, collects a paycheck. So that's another powerful reason that we want to be able to have that opportunity to delegate to people.
One comment about that is, especially now with some people working more remotely than they used to, delegating right now is really important, because you have to find other ways of overtly showing trust in people, especially now, because if you're out of sight, whether you're out of sight and not being seen on a Zoom video, you are literally out of mind. You have, people should be looking for opportunities or asking for opportunities to take on other work right now, so that they stay in the know, like you said, and feel a sense of, I'm needed here. Because if people don't see you showing up and doing things and participating, you can't really hang back now, because if you're not seen, you won't be there. You won't be seen eventually, right?
Well, you bring up a great point, and that trust goes both ways, doesn't it? So let's think about that leader who just can't delegate, or has certain things that he or she is doing that other people in the organization know that other people could well do those things, and it'd be a lot more efficient way to get them done. Well, now we're thinking to ourselves, if you're that person that works in the organization, you look at that leader as, he's not or she's not being truthful with me, saying that I can't do that or other people can't handle that task. So what are some of the other things I can't trust that person to tell me the truth about, you see? So we're talking about being very clear on our intentions here. And if we're not, people will interpret that in their own way. And in that case, it could be, hey, this person just doesn't get it, that they need to delegate. They don't want to do that. It can be perceived as a weakness. Certainly a level of mistrust is started with that type of behavior.
You bring up a really good point. We see things from our perspective. So when somebody doesn't delegate, we're interpreting that 100 different ways, losing sleep over it. I mean, they don't like me. They don't like this. My job's on the line. I'm going to get fired. I mean, the stuff that gets created from making assumptions is huge. And again, by working so remotely where we can't really be around people in terms of hearing the conversations like we used to, the water cooler type of thing, things can run rampant.
That's right.
in a very negative way.
Absolutely. Well, another thought that comes up too, people might think to themselves, I don't know if I should delegate. I'm not very good at that. I'm not very good at explaining things. And I'd love to quote Zig Ziglar, what he used to say. He said it this way: anything worth doing is worth doing. What would be the answer to that one? Fill in the blank. Anything worth
through
doing
other people. Through other people.
What most people would say, well, anything worth doing is worth doing well.
Yeah, worth doing well.
What Ziegler would say, anything worth doing is worth doing lousy until you get better at it.
Oh.
So if you're thinking about, well, I'm not really good at delegating or explaining things, well, just start doing it. Get some help, get some practice, and then you'll get better at it. And you'll notice we are typically pretty fond of doing things that we're good at. We like to do things that we're good at. Well, how does that happen? It takes practice. It takes a little instruction. It takes a little coaching, but you can get there. And once we are able to do things we're good at, then we feel pretty good about what we're doing. So in a sense, being able to replace this business of, I just feel so much better if I do it myself. How about replacing that with, I just feel so much better when I can delegate it to somebody, knowing there's some good reasons for doing that.
So, given that, I mean, there's, I see your point with that, but there are some folks, and you probably work with some, who they are white knuckling everything. I mean, they will not let go of anything.
Oh, yes.
How do you train an executive, especially the problem is when they are the executive and they have the power, let's say it could be their own company, you know what I mean? Which is like, there's a lot of dynamics going on there versus something that's publicly owned where, there can be outside pressures on them to do other things. When it's their own company, how do you wrestle away the tasks from somebody who's holding on to them for dear life because it's my company, I don't want to ruin it, it's my legacy? How do you get them out of the my and move to the team and the we kind of thing?
Well, first we have to start asking them some questions. That's really the best way to start. But I would share with them a formula I use with all my clients called the T-MET formula. T stands for try it out. So this business of delegating, having a problem with it, let's just try it. Let's pick a person. Let's pick something to delegate to. Try it out. Second, M for this acronym, measure the results. Okay, how effective was that person doing that? Okay, great. So you can measure the results. Did the job get done? Yes, it got done. It got done. It was excellent. Okay, and then the next part of that is the E. So evaluate. Well, how effective was that? I mean, compared to when I was doing it, how much longer to take this person to do it? And obviously, as we evaluate this, we say, well, if we keep delegating to this person, they're going to get better at that, and their efficiency will go up as well. So first, try the idea out, measure the results, evaluate, and then the last T, I call it T to the third power. You take this concept and continue to use it, or the second T would be tweak it. Maybe you have to tweak it a little bit. Or, hey, it was a terrible idea. I never should have delegated this task. Toss it out. So the three T's in that last part there are either take it, tweak it, or toss it. But we can do no harm by trying it out, measuring the results, evaluating, and then tweaking, tweaking or tossing with any new idea. And delegating is one such idea that we certainly need to be getting some practice in doing here.
I really love that model. And, one of the other benefits by trying it out and going through that process and seeing how it works, once it gets in, the learning curve kicks in and things get better, or you find the right people, to do the job if that other person wasn't the right person, is it frees you up to do other things. I mean, the flip side of delegation is freedom to grow yourself and to take on new opportunities, and with that creativity, because when your mind is always in executive mode and work mode, you don't even have the bandwidth to start thinking creatively and innovatively to bring new things to your company. It gives you that freedom. Precisely.
You're running that company, and that is something that you have to be able to see the big picture. You have to look at that from 1,000 feet up, and you can't see it 1,000 feet up if you're right down there on the 1 yard line trying to score a touchdown all by yourself. You got a whole team behind you there. So yeah, you got that exactly right.
So how do you identify let's say you get past the point, you wrestle the tasks away from somebody, but you got to give them to somebody to do the job. How do you identify, or what kind of characteristics are there for ideal people to delegate to? What kind of qualities should you be looking for?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. One of the best ways, of course, is to make sure each one of the people on your team have had an assessment done of some kind that measures their competencies. I handle one of those assessments myself. But the key is when you are aware of what their skill sets are, now we can match them to the tasks that need to be done. So that's one of the first places to look, is a good, thorough assessment. Certainly, you can look at their past record. What have they done in terms of the time they've been there with your organization? Maybe at another organization they've been to, another company they've been at before they came to yours. What were some of their job responsibilities? How good were they at that, you see? So certainly we have people that work for us that we may not even be aware of all these other skill sets they've developed at other places. They could be using them here. So it's a matter of inquiring, asking, testing, and then, like I said, match them up to the particular task that they could do, and then evaluate that whole process.
I don't know if this has ever come up for you in some of the work that you've done, but thinking about delegating to people, sometimes it can be in the moment, but how might somebody do this kind of more proactively, like as they're doing their quarterly reviews or annual reviews or whatever, or even in the moment reviews, but we kind of want to do it a little more proactively than in the moment, to think about in advance, like how you want to develop people and start thinking ahead to where you want to move them to, and kind of looking at other things to delegate to. I know that's kind of a...
No, I totally understand what you're saying. And here's what I always tell my clients. What we need to do, we need to get rid of this word annual review, because that's outdated. We're looking at something where it's an ongoing appraisal of how they're doing, But we need to sit down once a year and what I call an annual success plan, where we sit down and we look at all the things this person needs to do to improve and do a better job for the organization. We also need to ask them, what do they want to do? You see, so it's a compromise between what's needed and what they want to do, and now we can put down on paper or on a screen, what is it this person's going to be working on this year? What are some of the skill sets they need to acquire? Maybe they need to take some training, or they need to be able to learn some new software, you see, to help them to do their job better. But the idea is we need to see what the end goal is, but then start putting down on paper what are some of the tasks they need to learn how to do. And that may come from delegating, right? When they learn how to do these things, because someone will delegate them to them. The skill sets they're going to be learning. These are all things that we need to put together. And that's a great way to assess somebody's performance over the course of a year. And that way, at the end of the year, we can honestly share with them where they've grown and where they need to continue to grow, and how they can be rewarded for their growth. So that's not a bonus for everybody because they were able to stick with the company for 12 months, but what did they actually contribute to that organization? And obviously, if people contribute more value, they should be rewarded more. So I think it's a great way to look at, way to incorporate that right into your annual success plan is, okay, how can this person grow? Where do they need to grow? How can we do that? Delegation certainly can be part of that process.
Yeah. So if you had, if you could look at some of the, like a couple blunders that people make when it comes to delegation, things that stand in the way or that actually derail a delegated assignment or task. What are a couple of those? Because that would help people like bring to the surface some things they need to watch out for.
Absolutely. One basic one, let the person save face. So if they make a mistake, they don't get it right, don't use them as an example to the rest of the organization. Oh, this guy really blew it, I'll never have him do it again. That's terrible. Now, another thing is, when you're thinking about this, is when you're think about being a leader, think about the mindset. Okay, we want to help this person save face if they make a mistake, but certainly make it easy to correct any faults they might have, any mistakes they make. Just show them how easily it is that can be corrected. And don't certainly criticize them. That's one of the worst things we can do with people we're trying to grow. We say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. People don't want to hear that. they're their own worst critic. They hear enough of that from their own mind, their own internal mind. So the idea there is we want to praise them and then give them instructive guidance on how they can get better, because they're probably not going to get it right the first time, completely right. However, we can certainly look for what they did do right and show them how they can get better. So those are a couple of tips that just right from the get-go, it sets the whole mindset for that person that's being delegated to, as well as the person that's doing the delegating.
I think that's really, really well said. I really enjoyed this conversation, this rather deep dive into delegation and so many aspects of it, including your model. And to kind of put the cherry on top and to conclude, what's one piece of advice you might give to folks when it comes to delegation? I know there's so many, but what's one piece of advice?
I think the main thing is to just be aware that it's the main way that you're going to grow your organization, because you're going to be growing your people first.
Well said. I want to thank you so much, Tom, for being a guest yet again on Michigan Entrepreneur. And I really enjoyed learning about this topic.
Thank you.
If you'd like more information about our program, please visit us at MichiganEntrepreneurTV.com. Please join me again in the future when I interview another enterprising entrepreneur. Until then, wishing you the best of business.